First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for participating. I think it's very nice to see a lot of familiar names on the participant lists. Unfortunately, we are not meeting in Munich, but rather virtually, given the mess that's going on around the world. And special thanks to our friends from across the oceans, weird time zones. And I keep asking myself, when is Rich getting some sleep? But I guess sometimes we will know. So thank you, Rich, for joining at these times. So a quick
No problem.
overview. Pardon?
No problem.
Okay, thanks. I will take you all through a little bit of time travel and give an overview of where we started and what happened with the concept project. And I will also give you at least my personal perspective on forward looking. So let's start. What is Open Scenario 2 and what was the motivation to start it? And this was taken from the proposal and from the time that we presented it to the TSC at that time. We actually, the needs in the AV development and certification requires and will require massive simulation. I think that's well understood today. And Open Scenario 1 just completed its transfer. And there were different workshops in ASEM, and it became obvious that there are additional needs for development of in the AV world, and these probably cannot be met just by simple evolution of the current format, the XML format on which and the models on which based on which Open Scenario 1 is established. So the overall goal for Open Scenario is a standard that will have all the required features and will interact with the other components of the package like OpenDrive and OpenCRG. And this is how became the goal statement for Open Scenario 2, that this will be really the format and mechanism to supply the dynamic content and functional behavior to all testing and execution platforms for all the driving scenarios. So very ambitious goal that we took upon ourselves. We held some workshops, and out of this came the concept project proposal that went to ASAM. There were a few features that were defined, 12, and also some requirements on parameterization, accuracy, use cases, and others. And there was also an aggressive schedule. The aggressive schedule that was put in front of ASAM was that we would like to accomplish this by the end of the year, the end of the previous year, with an advanced warning, since that this is a large and complex project with many participants. There may be a chance that it will slip like many other complex engineering projects. So the project included about 100 engineers from 50 companies. Not all of them were fully active and fully participant. Some of them were observers. If I'm looking at the different face-to-faces that we have, usually we had between 40 and 50 participants in the face-to-faces. So I believe we can say that about 50% were active participants. We completed the concept document by the end of February. It was actually released for a full project review in January. We used GitLab as a mechanism for issue filing and tracking. And on February 17th, we held a full day review with all project participants, and we covered all the issues, and they were assigned a resolution plan. And there were more than 130 issues that were filed and were handled as part of this overall review process. The concept document is released and available on ASAM website. The link is here. And I think that the key message and the key change compared to Open Scenario 1.0 is the fact that the concept message is that the project should be a domain-specific language, which should support all the levels of scenario descriptions and all the levels of abstractions, from a very concrete to be used on very detailed physical testing protocols up to very abstract scenario definition. This is how the concept document looks like. And I found it very interesting. What I did, I went and I compared it to the original intent of what documents and content to deliver on the project at the beginning of the year. This way you will be able to see it as a backup slide at the end of this presentation. And you can find a very nice match between the sections and the chapters here to those that were articulated in these key deliverables in the original project proposal. Anyhow, later on today, we will have detailed descriptions from team members who participated in the build-up of specific sections, and they will describe the technical content of these ones. I will just give a high-level overview of three main concepts that are available in the document. So I think we did a very nice job on use cases and user stories. And this was brought up by the project team, that we need to have them, and we need to have the development of the project driven to match, and to this is sort of a verification tool for ourselves. And the teams that worked on user cases and user stories, they developed templates, they developed stories, they developed examples. So overall, we have there, I think, more than 30 or about 40 total, which is gives us a very good picture and confidence that we are doing the right thing here. The domain model, it's not complete, but we do have a foundation that is defining sort of the key entities and their relations. This will be a major task for the standardization project to enhance it and complete it. And this is one of the things that we will need to keep in sync with Open Scenario 1.0. So we have in the concept project, we have what I would call the first degree UML diagram and partition to classes and entities, but definitely a lot more work to take. And the last one is really the domain-specific language. And this was a foundational concept. The decision was to go on a declarative language, which means that it describes what should happen on a scenario execution rather than how to do the execution itself. And also a declarative language have a dual interpretation. On one hand, it provides a description of how to make it happen. On the other hand, it can also be used to specify what should have happened, and you can map events to see if they happen to them. And as you may recall, the MSDL language from Fortelix was chosen to supply examples in the concept documents. And forget the next slide. This is from a different presentation. And we also decided that the reference manual for the language that was used for this example will be stored on ASAM website. It's available together with the concept document. So if we look at the formalities, on April 2019, the TSC approved launching the concept project, though we informally started earlier. And just a few days ago, the TSC approved the completion of the concept project and the release of the concept document. And we've started to work on a development project proposal. At the first level, it's sort of ready, but we need to go through the proposal workshops and other in order to complete all the details and the memberships and others. And the formal TSC approval is expected in May. Of course, I would like to try and not to put everything on hold until May, and this will be, I hope, discussed at the end of this day. So looking ahead, the Open Scenario 2.0 project will take the concept and will develop the standard of the next generation. As Ben mentioned, we probably looking at about a year of development time. Again, a very aggressive schedule. And today is really the start of this journey, which I'm sure will be as exciting and even more than what we had in the concept project. Ben also mentioned the need to synchronize and keep the migration path and the relations between Open Scenario 1 and 2. And this is a very strong message that we will need to follow. Luckily, there is also another entity that was established in ASAM, the Simulation Coordination Work Group, that will make sure that this coordination is happening. And I think that for me, at least, the key message is that we should be able to take all the scenarios that have been written in Open Scenario 1.2. We will be able to migrate them to Open Scenario 2.0 and have the same simulation results. That's really the factor that will ensure that no resource investment is going away. Now, this is the roadmap that the Ben presented, and I'm presenting it here only to add on top of it some sort of an analogy to see how we are going to make progress with these two parallel paths, where you have technology, Open Scenario 1.0, which started in a certain shape and form, but throughout the time, you realize that sometimes evolution will not necessarily make it. So I wanted to bring an analogy from a completely different world. And you all using USB and USB connectors. And USB actually started with type A and B, the classical connectors, and it also has certain features like speed and directionality and others. With time, as the world is evolving and different needs are showing up, then it became obvious that you want to improve speed, introduce other features, and with the different evolution, you also got to USB Type-C, which is a much higher speed, and it doesn't have a directionality of the connector. And if you look at the USB Type A versus Type C, these are not the same thing. So what do? You have a migration path. And you have a very simple migration path with which you can take peripherals or cables that were done for USB Type A, and with a simple converter, well, it may not be simple in some other cases, you can plug it in and use it with Type-C. So all your investment in the old USB will still survive, and you will be able to use it in future versions. So with that in mind, again, I would like to thank everyone for joining, and I'm looking forward to work with everyone on this new and exciting project. Ben, back to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ge. I love the animation at the end. I think that's going to have to be the cover page for Open Scenario 2.0. Let's find an equivalent. Great. So I think that's a very interesting analogy. And I think it might help a lot of people in gaining an understanding for the two versions here, especially as we start becoming more clear what 2.0 is to become. So on that note, we will now take a bit more of a technical deep dive into the concept paper. So Gil presented there a very nice overview of the concept project. And now we have a couple of representatives that will present some more detail on some of those aspects. And to start us off, we have Florian Bock from Audi, who will present the use cases and the user stories that were defined for this project. So Florian, you can grab the presentation and take it away.